Good evening, Dr. Ritu Santwani. Good evening, Professor Dr. Deepak Jomani, and good evening, all the participants. Inoke welcomes you all welcome you all in webinar series on the topic Novel Management of Erectile Dysfunction in the Pundit Show, organized by Dr. Ritu. Myself, Harish Mehta, working as a marketing manager in the company in Inoke Life Sciences. And today is my privilege to introduce both the doctors.
Winding up now here.
Dr. Ritu
Bye bye.
Santwani
Stay
is
safe.
MBBS,
Good
MD,
night.
Obstetrician Gynecology, IVF, Infertility Specialist. Dr. Ritu Santwani, 20 years veteran of Obstetrician Gynecology Services. Dr. Ritu Santwani specializes in test tube baby and each and every aspect of infertility and provides a comprehensive services in IUI, IVF, ICSI, assisted hatching, egg donation, embryo donation, surrogate motherhood, male infertility, natural infertility treatments, semen banking, embryo freezing, sexual and psychological problems. And Dr. Ritu Santwani tried to give moral and emotional support to our infertility patients. Welcome, ma'am. Now, today's Pandit, Professor Dr. Deepak Jomani. Dr. Deepak Jomani is a distinguished senior sexual health physician and counselor from the Mumbai, attached to Sir J.J. Hospital and Grand Medical College as an assistant professor of medicine, sexual health. Dr. Deepak Jomani, he is also attached to Mumbai Police Hospital, Dr. House and Apollo Sugar Clinics as a consultant sexologist. Dr. Deepak Jomani, he has a private clinic at Dr. House and My Best Doctor Clinic in Goregaon, Mumbai. He's also conferred with the Dronacharya Award. Dr. Deepak Jomani also chairperson or chairman of the Indian Medical Association Initiatives of Sexual Health, a pan-India sex education program. Dr. Deepak Jomani, the author of the bestseller, The Manual of Sexual Health, titled Sex Has No Expiry Date. Professor Dr. Deepak Jomani is a stellar personality, prolific orator, singer, and avid reader and researcher. Welcome, sir. This webinar is organized by the InnoCare Life Sciences from the makers of eDrive and eDrive C. Welcome both of you. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Harish, for the kind introduction. So, a very good evening, dear friends. A very warm welcome to all of you. After the super success of our two shows and on a very high demand, today we are presenting our very third show with none other than a stalwart, Dr. Deepak Jomani, sir. Sir, thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you very much. I'm honored and it's pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much, sir. So, friends, as you know, the name of the show, the Pundit at the Dr. Ritu show. The Pundit means the expert. In this show, I interview the people whom I admire, from whom I have learned a lot. So, from after seeing and listening of the lectures of the whom I am very passionate. So today in this series, we are with us with the Dr. Professor Jomani. So friends, let's learn together. So without wasting the time, I am directly starting with the subject. As all of you know, the subject of today's is the novel management of the erectile dysfunction. So because Professor Jomani is the best person to guide us all about this. As friends, all of you know, this erectile dysfunction is a very common problem in these days. According to incidence wise, it is reported is up to 6% in the age group of 20 to 29 years and 50 to 70% in the age group of 40 to 79 years. And as per the definition, is erectile dysfunction is inability to achieve or maintain the penile erection, which leads to unsatisfactory sexual intercourse. So, as we know, this erectile dysfunction is very common these days. Sir, can you please enlighten us that what are the common causes of the erectile dysfunction?
Yeah, as you rightly said, it's very highly prevalent and less talked about it. The common causes, if you look at it in my private practice, the commonest is the psychogenic erectile dysfunction. Then we have the other whole plethora of group which is called organic. And sometimes it is mixed. And when I say it's organic, it could be vasculogenic, which means there is a vascular problem. It could be neurogenic, where nerves are involved, either post-operative or sometimes in diabetes or sometimes with neurological injuries, etc. So that's psychological, vasculogenic, neurogenic, and then we have, and in elderly group, we have some hormonal issues, So sometimes there is lack of testosterone or reduction of testosterone. So that's hormonogenic. And sometimes patients take certain drugs like beta blockers, diuretics, and so many other drugs which are responsible for getting the symptoms of erectile dysfunction. So that is iatrogenic. And the new thing which is now we have learned is it's also genetic. They found on the chromosome 6 a SIM1 loci, which is present in every patient who's got lifelong erectile dysfunction. So now it is also proven that it has a genetic cause. So I call it as erectile dysfunction is psycho, vasculo, neuro, hormono, itro, and genetic issue. So that's how it can be caused. And amongst the commonest of all the causes, we find one is psychogenic, and the next is organic, and we find mainly diabetics and hypertensives. Now, diabetics also is one of the metabolic symptom of one of the metabolic syndrome. So diabetics and hypertensives and patients who have dyslipidemia or obese, these are the four categories of patients we see very often. And the last category which we see rampantly is either due to certain drugs or some patients who undergone prostatic surgery or some abdominal surgery where the nerves are being cut. So those patients are also getting erectile dysfunction. So these are the main variety of patients, group of patients we see in our day-to-day practice.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, this genetic reason is very new for me.
Yes,
Thank you. Yes,
yes.
thank you so much, sir. Sir, actually, you have answered my 2-3 questions. My next question was actually is how to differentiate between the psychogenic and orgasmic. So very beautifully you have covered these two. Sir, please enlighten us that what are the common investigations we have to proceed once the patient is coming us with the complaint of erectile dysfunction.
Okay. So let me answer your first question about psychogenic.
Yeah.
Now it's very
Yes.
important for us to take a history. And
Okay.
from the history itself, you can come to know that whether this patient has got psychogenic erectile dysfunction or it could be situational erectile dysfunction or whether he has an organic issue. Now, to differentiate is very, very easy. See, psychogenic erectile dysfunction will be acute, will be suddenly. Yesterday, and it will be in a younger group of patients, say less than 40. A guy who's 30-year-old has been ditched by a girlfriend. So the next day he feels he's got erectile dysfunction. That's psychogenic. And sometimes he has failed in something, he does not achieve anything, or he's been insulted by somebody, or he's stressed about something. So younger group of patients will get mainly psychogenic erectile dysfunction, or sometimes if they are forced to have sex and they can't do it, so that's again a situational erectile dysfunction. Now, how do we identify this? We ask patients one simple question that in the past 8 days or 15 days, do you get up in the morning with a morning erection or with a hard penis? And if he says yes, in the last 8-10 days, I had 2-3 times this issues, that means this problem is purely psychogenic because organic issues don't happen acutely. They will be gradually keeping on increasing and will be for a long time. Say like in diabetes, hypertensives, etc. So the main question which we ask is, do you get morning erections? And if he says, yes, I'm getting morning erections at least 2 to 3 times in a week, and if he's less than 40, and if he's developed erectile dysfunction suddenly with some incident in his life, it's purely psychogenic. And these patients need only counseling. They don't need drugs. They don't need PDE5 inhibitors. So that's a very simple way to diagnose what is psychogenic and what is organic erectile dysfunctions. Plus, we have also a sildenafil office test. We give them a 50 mg tablet of sildenafil in our office, and we tell them to fantasize and come after 1.5 hours. And then we again examine them. If we find erections, oh, he's fine. He's got no erectile. We can also give intracavernous papaverine injection, a low dose, and ask him to wait for 15-20 minutes or 25 minutes. And if he find erections, fine, he's again psychogenic. The fourth way to identify is we have a Regi scan. Regi scan is a very good gadget, but very expensive gadget, very cumbersome. We tie 2 electrodes, one at the base of the penis and one at the tip of the penis, and these 2 electrodes are connected with the Regi scan. and patient is made to lie down in the hospital, and in deep REM sleep, when he's deep sleeping, if he has got no organic cause, which means he doesn't have any metabolic syndrome or any neurological issues or any hormonal issues, or he's not on any drugs which are causing this, so he would get erections 2 to 3 times or maybe 4 times, which will last for 20 to 25 minutes, and those can be plotted with the help of Regiscan. So if we plot these, he has psychogenic or situational erectile dysfunction. He does not have organic issues. So these are the ways we can identify psychogenic, which is this forms the major chunk of our group, especially in the younger group of patients who come and tell us, "Oh, I have got erectile dysfunction, doctor," and so this is how we can diagnose it. Yeah. So what was your second question?
Yeah. Sir, what are the investigations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, for psychogenic, it is the clinical history. A detailed history is a must. Then in investigations, we do a simple CBC, we do blood sugar, fasting and HbA1c, we do lipid profile complete, then we do the serum testosterone, free and total. We also do sex hormone binding globulin. We do serum PSA free and total. We do prolactin, T3, T4 and FTSH, and we do an ultrasound of the penis and a duplex sonography, and then we in the end we also do digital rectal examinations. So these are the investigations which we do to cover up all the organic causes. Plus there are some other causes, like low vitamin D, so and raised uric acid, so hypovitaminosis D, hyperuricemia. So these are again some causes where we also do certain investigations where we don't find any cause and he really has some erectile dysfunction. So these are the investigations which we do in our day-to-day practice.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, is it any questionnaire you are following to assess the severity of erectile dysfunction? Any questionnaire to the patients we are giving?
Yes, there are. There are two beautiful questionnaires. One is a 15 questions, which is called IIEF. It's called International Index of Erectile Functions. It's divided into three of each. One tells it about the desire, about the orgasm, about the erection, about the penetration, about the satisfaction. So this is a 15 questionnaire, and we start asking our patient in the last 4 weeks, did you have all these things? So we have 15 questions. That is one very good questionnaire. And the second question is called SHIM, SHIM, Sexual Health Inventory for Men. This is a very short 5 question, which is a very beautiful questionnaire. Both are validated instruments which we use in our day-to-day practice, but we use it only in certain patients who are whom we think is a chronic patient, and we need to do certain research on him and all that. At least in the hospital, at JJ Hospital, we do these 2 questionnaires for every patient, but in our private practice we don't do it, because we try to do this in our clinic, and when we made our secretaries ask these 15 questions to the patients, they all told lies, because the secretary was sweet and all, and the patients didn't want them to form a judgment about them, so they did hide certain things. They didn't tell them correctly whatever were the real issues while questions were being asked. So questionnaires, 2 validated questionnaires, are very good for patients with erectile dysfunctions. They tell us the severity, they tell us the cause, what could be the cause of erectile dysfunction, like which domain, is it the erection, is it the penetration issue, is it the satisfaction issue, is it the orgasmic issues? So we get to know what are the issues in this particular symptom of erectile dysfunction with these questionnaires. They are very good. They are used for research internationally, everywhere. Even we use it for research, but in our clinical practice, we hardly use it. We just take detailed history depending upon the questions which are there in the questionnaire, in order not to make the patients more embarrassed, or Indians they don't want to feel judged upon by somebody, so they don't tell anything more. So we ask them direct questions, and those are all like the questions which are there, and then we make our judgment and diagnosis.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. So now other very practical question. Sir, is it any way to know that the patient is suffering from erectile dysfunction without checking him?
Yeah.
So many common, this is very common, you can consider as my personal question, that so many patients are approaching with their wives.
So,
yes, sir.
Yeah. So there are many ways where we can diagnose erectile dysfunction, even the severity of it, without even asking a question to a patient, without even examining him. Now, you will say, how? He has not told you anything that he's got erectile dysfunction, but he's come to your chamber with certain reports, and you look at the reports, and then you confront with him, and you tell him, I think you have this. Then, he's shocked, and he calls you a Sai Baba. How did you know about it? So, very simple thing is, we do CBC of every patient of ours, right? It's a very
Yes.
common investigation which we do in our day, whether it is viral infection, bacterial infection, anemia, allergies. We do CBC in all patients as a routine, which doesn't cost much. Now, when you look at a CBC report of any male who's about 25, 30, 35, 40 and all, and if you find the ratio of the platelets and lymphocytes, total platelet count and lymphocyte count, which is called platelet lymphocyte ratio. We call it PLR. Now, if this ratio, if it is more than 104, he's got mild erectile dysfunction. If it is more than 116, he's got moderate erectile dysfunction. If it is more than 136, he's got severe erectile dysfunction. So just by looking at the CBC report and doing a mental calculation, like platelets are 1.5 lakhs and how much is the lymphocyte, just divide it and find out how much it is. So you come to know that these patients could be having erectile dysfunction. That's one way. Now, second way is, we have in diabetics patients who have got raised advanced glycated end products. These are things which get increased in diabetics. So there's a very simple gadget which is called age reader. We call it advanced glycated end product readers. It's a small gadget. It's just like a printer. You put a hand on the gadget, and this age reader will detect the amount of age through skin auto inflorescence, and that's how we can come to know the severity of erectile dysfunctions, just by the inflorescence of the skin. Because of the advanced glycated end product, they emit certain rays, and the sensors on that gadget pick up these, and we come to know about it. Third very important ways, I work for Bombay Police. When I look at my patients, they are wearing uniform, and I look at the belts. So if I find the belts going down, the reduction in the belt size, not the size, but the place where the belt is being reduced. Sometimes it's up. In some patients, we find it a little less. So the reducing belt direction gives me the indication that he has got erectile dysfunction. That's because of obesity or dyslipidemia, and that we have really found out that it is so. Sometimes a Turkish study proved that the neck circumference, when you do a neck circumference, if it is more than 16 inches, this patient definitely has erectile dysfunctions. So these are the few ways where you, without even asking the patient about this symptom, without even examining him, you can get an idea as to this patient could be having. But the four deadly quadrants, which really these patients are having erectile dysfunctions, are patients who are diabetic, patients who are hypertensive, patients who are dyslipidemic, and patients who are obese. So these four patients, you can be 100% sure that they have either mild, moderate, or severe erectile dysfunctions. So this is how, without even examining, without even taking a history of the patients, you can know that these patients could be having erectile dysfunctions.
Thank you so much, sir. A very practical tips, and this answer can be enlightened us to all the gynecologists also. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, what are the common drugs used for the treatment of erectile dysfunction?
What is the treatment?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are three lines of treatment. The first line of treatment is oral pharmacotherapeutic agents. Along with that, I also add counseling and lifestyle measures. So that's the first line of therapy. Now, if these first line of therapy fails, we go to the second line of therapy, which is vacuum therapy, intracavernous injections of papaverine and chlorpromazine, and the last is intraurethral drugs like prostaglandins, Along with this, again, counseling and lifestyle measures. And if all these two lines of therapies fail, the final line of therapy is surgical intervention, which is arterial anastomosis or penile implants, along with counseling and lifestyle measures. So, counseling and lifestyle measures form the mainstay of treatment for erectile dysfunctions. It could be first line, it could be drugs, it could be any other second line of therapy, and it could be even surgery. Now, do you want me to tell about the drugs now, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a little
See,
bit, please share us. Yes.
okay.
Huh.
Among the pharmacotherapy for erectile dysfunctions, we have 4 beautiful drugs. These are nothing but PDE5, that is phosphodiesterase enzyme, isoenzyme 5 inhibitors. If you know the physiology of erection, after the CGMP, which is formed in the intracavernous smooth muscle cell, which allows the blood to flow in, this CGMP hydrolyzes into 5-GMP with the help of an enzyme called phosphodiesterase 5. So if we block this enzyme, the blood remains in the penis for a longer time, and that's how the man sustains his erection. So understanding this physiology, what we have is PDE5 inhibitors. Now the 4 common PDE5 inhibitors which are available in our country, the oldest of whom we celebrated 20th year now. 2 decades have passed. We celebrated 20 years of sildenafil today, a few months back. And then second was tadalafil. The third was sildenafil. And the new kid in the block is vardenafil. So these are the 4 drugs which we have. And the doses available of each are sildenafil is available as 25 milligram, 50 milligram, and 100 milligram. Tadalafil is available in the dose of 2.5 milligram, 5 milligram, 10 milligram, and 20 milligram. Sildenafil is a single dose drug. It's available only as 100 milligram tablet, and vardenafil is available as 10 milligram and 20 milligram of tablet. Now, all these drugs have a different onset of action in different half-life and different duration of action. Let's take the first drug, sildenafil. Sildenafil takes around 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes to act, and the action lasts for around 4 to 6 hours. So that's about sildenafil. Tadalafil, the action starts after 60 minutes, and the duration of action is around 17 and a half hours, or sometimes even more. So the longest action is of tadalafil. The third drug, sildenafil, the onset of action is around 30 to 40 minutes, but the action lasts for 12 hours. And the last drug, which is vardenafil, the onset of action is around 30 to 35 minutes, and the duration is around 5 to 6 hours. Now, so these are the onset of action, duration of actions with this. But one thing we should remember is whenever we are giving sildenafil, we need to, and vardenafil, these 2 drugs, these are to be given prior to dinner or prior to meals, because after fatty meals, they don't work very well. So they have to be given prior to meals, at least hour and a half prior to meals. Tadalafil has no relation with fatty meal. Sildenafil also doesn't have, but vardenafil definitely has some action if it is given after. It has got little action if we give after meals. So prior to meals are the 2 drugs, sildenafil and vardenafil, whereas tadalafil and sildenafil can be given any time whenever you want, depending upon the duration of onset of action. So that's how we should manage.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, sir, for such an elaborated answer. Sir, what are the common side effects are noticed with these drugs?
If the 3 or 4 very common side effects which we see, they're not much, they're not adverse, or they're not severe enough. Patients are a little scared about it. Whenever we try giving them certain drugs, they tell me, "Ye Vigara to nahi hai na, andha to nahi ho jayega na," something like that. So there's a lot of myth about these medications. The commonest side effect with almost all PDE5 inhibitors is headache. Okay, nasal stuffiness, dyspepsia. Okay, and with tadalafil, we have seen backache, and sometimes we see little bit lowering of pressure in some patients, and sometimes greenish bluish halo which we see in these patients who have been taking these drugs. So these are the common side effects which we see. So, and the one which is very important for me to tell you all is that we should not give PD5 inhibitors to anybody who is on nitrate, or all those patients whom we want to give nitrates should not be on PD5 inhibitors, because nitrates are vasodilators and PD5 inhibitors are also vasodilators. So if we give both together, the patients will develop severe hypotension, and that can be fatal. So these are the one of the common things which we need to ask, or we need to know when we prescribe PD5 inhibitors, is whether he is on nitrates, or second thing, whether he had a recent myocardial ischemia or recent event he had, or he has certain curvature in the penis like Peyronie's disease, or he's got certain leukemias. So these are the patients whom we should avoid giving PD5 inhibitors. But the common side effects are headache, dyspepsia, nasal stuffiness, and greenish bluish halos in the eye. And one thing very important about the eye thing also, which very patients are, there have been episodic incidents of certain patients who got severe symptoms like chorioretinopathy or choroidal thicknesses or non-arteritic arterial optic atrophy. Very, very few cases, but that is exaggerated a lot, but very few patients get it. Now, whenever we see patients with these complaints, they don't lose their visual acuity. That is very important. And this occurs in patients who already have some retinal injuries, some retinal damages they already have, and they are taking this, so this exaggerated. So normally patients will not get it, but if they've got a defective retina, if they've got some disease in the retina, they would surely get these halos. And if we get these halos in a normal patient as a side effect, we need to reduce the dose, or we need to change it to another PD5 inhibitor. It is mostly common with sildenafil, very common with sildenafil. So we can switch over to tadalafil, or we can give them any other drug.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, as you have mentioned now these four types of PGE5 inhibitors, so how we have to decide that which drug is to which kind of patient?
Perfect, very good. The
Yeah.
dynamics of prescribing PD5 inhibitors, we need to understand what is his lifestyle, what is his story, when does he want to have sex. Suppose he wants to have sex in the night, okay, so tell him to take it before dinner. It could be anything, it could be sildenafil, tadalafil, sildenafil, or anything. And suppose he wants to have sex day after tomorrow or something, then you have to give some longer acting drug like tadalafil. Or if he's going out somewhere, he needs to have sex 2 to 3 times, so he needs to give tadalafil, which works for a longer period of time. Now, what we see in neurological causes, say spinal cord injuries or neuropathies of any form, or patients with Parkinson's or any neurological damage, sildenafil works very well. And in certain patients whom we find that he wants to have sex within an hour or so, again sildenafil is very good, tadalafil is not so good. And the fastest acting is vardenafil. You can give them vardenafil if he wants to have sex within 1.5 hours. So that is the very good drug. Some patients ask for it, that I am going out with my girlfriend and secretary and I have only limited time. So we prescribe accordingly to those patients. But in diabetics, in hypertension, in dyslipidemia, or in patients who are obese, these four category of patients, I would advise these patients to take a long-term therapy with low dose of tadalafil, be it 5 mg or 10 mg. It works fantastic. It also works in patients who have got prostatic hypertrophy, or he's got some lower urinary tract symptoms. Tadalafil, because PD5 inhibitors are working with the enzyme PDE5 isoenzyme. We have found PDE5 isoenzymes present in the bladder, we found in the stroma of the prostate, we found in the urethra, we found in the eye, we found at many other places. So if we give tadalafil to these patients, the symptoms of the lower urinary tract also improve, the prostatic enlargement reduces, and one more advantage about tadalafil which has been studied is that it improves the endothelium-derived endothelial nitric oxide synthetase. So it improves the endothelial function also, which is one of the commonest cause, which is the cause of patients having organic erectile dysfunction. So if you want to give patients a good quality of life, to improve his endothelium, tadalafil is the topmost drug which he can be given. But patients having neurological issues, patients who want to have quick sex, or patients who want to have other issues, they can be given any other type of drugs like sildenafil or this thing. Udenafil is a fantastic, a novel drug. Now, this can be given to patients who get symptoms of myalgia, dyspepsia, etc., or some discolorations, a lot of discoloration with all the. Udenafil gives less visual discoloration, it produces less headache, it produces less myalgia. So it is another beautiful novel drug which has got lesser side effects. But the only drawback it is very costly. Each tablet is around 600 rupees. So that is the only drawback. But this is the advantage of Udenafil.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, how long we can give this medication?
Very good question. Now, if you go back into the history of PDE5 inhibitors, Zeprinast was launched in 1974 for by Dr. Louis Ignarro, who got a Nobel Prize later on. Now he used this drug for pulmonary hypertension, for angina patients, for peripheral arterial disease, and things like that. He used this drug to treat those patients. But then he found that these patients were getting erections, which were more severe, and the other things were very less. So little after studying a lot, they found a similar thing in sildenafil. So in 1988, when sildenafil was launched, 1998 when sildenafil was launched, so this was actually a anti-hypertensive drug, you know, the side effect of which is erection. So today, these antihypertensive drugs like PDE5 inhibitors are used as as drugs for erectile dysfunction and not used for as an antihypertensive drugs. Though sildenafil is used for pulmonary arterial hypertension, in Raynaud's phenomenon it is used, even in women it has been used a lot. So this was basically a antihypertensive drug. The antihypertensive effect was around 2 to 3 millimeter, but the side effect was very good erection in these patients. Now, when I look at my diabetic patients or patients with metabolic syndrome, they all have diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia. A very common thing. All, about 45, 50 with a paunch, and if they are taking antihypertensive, they are taking anti-diabetic, they are taking dyslipidemic drugs also. So now when I give them PDE5 inhibitors, and they also have erectile dysfunction, so what I'm trying to do is I'm giving them something to reduce their pressures also by 2 to 3 millimeters, okay, and also giving them a good quality of life by giving them good erections. So this acts in two ways to my patients. Now, when I say that it's an antihypertensive drug, now if I give it to my patient who are having hypertension, who are on 2 to 3 drugs of antihypertensive drugs, what is the logic I have? The logic I think in my mind that I am giving them antihypertensives for lifetime. Nothing wrong. Don't we give them for lifetime, all the antihypertensive patients? So what is wrong in giving them low dose PDE5 inhibitors for a long term? It is again an antihypertensive drug. It's not going to do any harm to him. So you can give, the studies are there for 5 years, 15 years studies are there with tadalafil. There was one patient in Mysore, a beautiful study which is published. He took 1300 milligrams of sildenafil, 1300 milligrams of sildenafil, and he took it for 10 years. He kept on increasing from 100 to 200 to 300. In the later years of his life, he took 1300 milligram of sildenafil, 100 mg, and he took it 2 to 3 times in a week. Such a high dose. And only complication he had was he was seeing bluish green discoloration. That is the only side effect he had. Moment he stopped it, this was disappeared. So the amount of drug which can be taken has been proven. It could be, and when sildenafil was studied, they tried up to 800 milligram of sildenafil on patients, and it was very safe. So, and the duration, it could be any amount. It could be, the studies are there for tadalafil up to 15 years, sildenafil up to 24 months and little more. So you can give it for a longer time. No, sir, nothing wrong. And the protocol for radical prostatectomy toctomized patient is sildenafil 50 milligram to be taken for 6 months, for 6 months continuous. It's a protocol, it's a published protocol which has been followed. So it can
Thank
be
you,
given
sir.
for a long time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, already we have exceeded our time, sir. So before I ask some questions, there are some very important queries some doctor wants to know. Although my bundle of questions is not finished, sir, you are like an ocean of knowledge. Huh? So next time we will do one grand program with you with more than 2 and 3 hours. So
My pleasure.
yeah, thank you so much, sir. So meanwhile, I will take some questions from the audience. Sir, Dr. Noni Singha is writing, cause of erectile dysfunction after MI, and in what time after MI one can have sex?
Yeah. See, there are standard protocols by the American Heart Association. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if he has undergone a bypass surgery, okay, once the wounds heal, complete the sternal wounds have healed, he can start his sexual activity after 4 weeks. After the wounds have completely healed, okay, which heal normally within a month. So overall, after 2 months, he can have, after the surgery, he can have his continuous sex life. If he has undergone angioplasty, okay, so after angioplasty, after a week or two, he can start his normal sexual activity. In fact, many of the cardiologists call me prior to the surgery to counsel our patients. So we tell them, we ask them about their sex life, and we tell them that once you get it done, you will be having fresh new arteries, which will not be having any blocks, etc. You will become 10 to 20 years younger, and so you can have good enough sex, because whatever is good for your heart is good for your penis also. So you will have a good sex life after 2 weeks or maybe after 8 weeks. If he has got myocardial infarction and he's undergone conservative line of treatment, after 2 months of complete treatment, when complete revascularization has occurred, he can start his sex life.
Thank you so much, sir. So there's one more query from Dr. S. Sarabdikari. Is there is any mood elevator is required with PDE5 inhibitors?
Is that what?
Any mood elevator? Mood elevator is required with PDE5 inhibitors.
What is the new delivery? Your voice is not clear.
Mood elevator, sir. Mood elevator is asking.
There is no need. There is, see, sildenafil, if there is a way to give sildenafil also. There are 40% patients who do not respond to sildenafil. Now, why they don't respond to sildenafil? The reason is very simple. Now, if I have to give my patient sildenafil, first of all, I look at the contraindications. Is he on nitrates? He is not on nitrates. Fine. So I can safely give him sildenafil. I look at his weight. If he's 60 to 70 kilos and more, I don't give him low dose. I give him straight away 100 milligram of sildenafil. And if he's planning to have sex in the night after dinner, so I tell him to take it an hour and a half prior to dinner. So first thing is the adequate dose. The second thing is duration prior to the meals. And after taking the tablet, I always advise them not to read Bhagavad Gita or Hanuman Chalisa, or not to watch Astha channel or Sanskar channel. You need to think erotic. You need to stimulate yourself completely after taking the tablet for next 1.5 hours before the dinner. And when there is a dinner, you have to have a very light meal. Don't have to have fatty meal, because post fatty meal for the next 4 to 6 hours, most of the body's blood gets collected on the stomach and intestine to digest the food, which is a must. And in doing so, he deprives himself of giving optimum blood supply to his penile, to his penis, for getting an optimum erection or a desired erection. So he has to have a very light meal. And if he has not had sex for 6 months to 1 year prior to the taking of medications of sildenafil, he should not have sex on day 1. He can sleep with his partner, do foreplay, etc. But feel the difference, experience the change in him. On day 1, day 2, he should do that. On day 3, after feeling the difference and experiencing the change in him, he will get confidence which he did not have. So on that day 3 onwards, he can have his sex. So this much time you need to spend with your patients to tell them when to take it. So if you tell him why they don't respond is they have not taken it in adequate day. They took a very low dose. नहीं यार डर लगता है कुछ होएगा तो. So they take it in a low dose. They take it 10 minutes before having sex. They take it after dinner. So it doesn't work. So you need to counsel your patients for at least 5 minutes and tell them how they should be taking it. And if they take it in this way, they don't need any mood elevators along with it. There is no recommendation to start a mood elevator. We do give testosterone in patients who have got hypogonadism, proven hypogonadism, whose free and total free testosterone is very low, who have got desire issues. We give them testosterone and that helps them in getting a desire. But mood elevators, nothing. Many patients say, okay, if I take a sip of alcohol or 2-3 drinks and take it, doesn't help. Alcohol doesn't help. It increases your desire for some time, but it decreases your ability to have sex. So ultimate yield is useless. So you don't have to have any mood elevators. All you need is your excited partner and your own fantasies to get good enough erections.
Thank you so much, sir. Friends, now I'm taking one last question as sir has to attend some other webinar. It's sir's greatness that in spite of his heavy, busy schedule, he has taken out time for us. Sir, I'm taking this one last question. This is from Dr. Kaushik. He's writing, sir, one of my patient is having metabolic syndrome and in penile Doppler having intermittent venous leakage. Age 41. He is having ED from 28 years of age and noticed after marriage, and used to masturbate frequently. What will be the management?
So if he has got venous leak, he is not able to sustain his erection. That is very sure. So there's an anatomical problem, If it is, then he needs to send him to an andrologist who will work on it, whether any surgical procedures can be done. But yes, certain patients, certain studies have shown that vardenafil, if you give patients for a longer time, also helps in these patients to improve the venous leak. But yes, the therapy is with the androsurgeons. They need to intervene and they need to correct the whole leak.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, because questions are endless. So thank you so much again once for joining with us, sir. Before I wind up, sir, as we all know, you are a very good singer. So I need, sir, 2 lines from your side, sir. 2 lines only. Before we wind up this show. Of any of your favorite songs, sir.
Oh, okay.
Any of.
मधुबन खुशबू देता है, सागर सावन देता है, जीना उसका जीना है, जो औरों को जीवन देता है, मधुबन खुशबू देता है.
Thank you so much, sir. Melodious voice. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us. We friends, don't get disheartened. Soon we will organize another show with the sir with more time duration.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you, NovaCare. Thank you, Harish, for helping us and supporting us with this Pundit show.
Thank you.
Okay, so friends, we are winding up now here. Bye-bye. Stay safe. Good night.